So Iulia and Stella, welcome to Troublemakers, the podcast.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. You're joining us from the feminist movement in Moldova.
Yes, we do.
We are here to discuss some kind of like nerdy thing, which is called the Overton Window, but basically it's a fancy way of saying that there are extreme positions in society on different issues, but most people are somewhere in between those positions. And so the argument is not always against the extremes, but how do we pull these people in the middle a little bit more toward our side? And there's this principle that activists sometimes use, which is to use your lunatics, you know, the crazy ones, the mad ones, to do something wild that is actually convincing to the people that are sort of in the middle and pulls them a little bit closer.
Or scares them.
Or scares
more.
them. More. And shifts them to the opponent's side, right?
Yes.
So we can talk about examples that might, you know, lead to both of those consequences. And from what we have discussed already together before we started recording, it seems like Moldova is one of those contexts where you have many people that are just kind of complacent, apathetic, not involved, not politicized.
Yep. Very,
Right.
very correct. I will maybe, if that makes sense, I will start with a little bit of my personal story. Because in my head, like what means radical movements or radical actions is something that for other will be like mild kind of activism. But in time I was like out of the protest myself because I was afraid to be associated with this part of radicalism and like radical thinking. But in the end, I just understood that I want to make changes. I do ally with the values of some movements. I do ally with the values of some initiative groups. And I don't know how to make my voice more heard and like to say, I'm here with you. And that was the moment when I understood that, and I'm also like a little bit, so how do you say, I'm afraid of crowds, crowdophobic. And the protest is not the really best way to be there, out there. But in the end, I got out and I understood that my values are more valuable, how strange this will sound, than any other things that are behind me. And my presence on the streets is more important than, I don't know, traditions that my family are trying to educate in me. And I think this is the case of a lot of girls, at least in our country, that the family puts a lot of pressure in education, that like being out on the streets is exposing our family, our values, our traditions. Your education seems to be bad if you're going screaming on the streets, you know?
I would add something here is like about Moldovan culture. Let's say it's a trait of Moldovan culture. For us, it's really important what other people thinks about us, like our neighbors, our family, like Stella said, our colleagues, or so on and so forth. So I think because of that cultural trait, it's so hard for us to get out of the box and like use some more, let's say, radical. They are not radical. I would say in general, feminist movement is really quiet and really yeah, I mean, and again, it depends on which methods and which movements in which country we are comparing with. But in Moldova, some methods that we are doing are like people see it radical. That's why I think it's like a combination with the cultural trait, with the like our identity like nation, how chill or how like really humble we are. So you need to get that into the, I mean, in discussion about the context. Like my personal view is like all the methods are really, really good, independence of the context, of the goal, of the, and when I'm saying the context, it's like about how much oppression do we face. So how unbearable is that? Because sometimes there are really a situation that is like so unbearable and it's not changing nothing, like just the mild methods, let's say, were just like this one really
friendly and like
friendly,
obedient.
yes. And let's say non-violent, yeah, sometimes, and during the history we saw without violent like methods or like instruments, we couldn't get the rights that we have right now. So we need to have this discussion, actually, first of all.
Sure. What are some of the things that you've seen in recent years that have made Moldovans question, like, should we really just be comfortable, or are there any actions that took place that really kind of changed things in that way?
So I'm not only a feminist, but feminism in general, let's say it's intersectional, and I'm also an LGBT rights activist in my country. And I think now I've seen how, for example, the LGBT movement in Moldova kind of became alive, but let's face that our country had their people there all the time. But when we felt that we have common links, and when you feel that you are not alone in your struggle, I think this is also for all the movements that we have. When you feel that somebody is there to support you, you're not that afraid to get out on the street. So what I'm trying to say is that in the moment that we started to be very visible on the social media, a lot of activist voices started to speak on the social media, and there is a bad and a good thing that they made protests and getting on the streets something trendy and fashionable, kind of. There is also this feeling of belonging that increased. So in our country, people started to get out on the streets more. And in that moment, we were just happy that people are out there. Doesn't matter what was the reason behind them, you know?
Yeah.
You were happy because it kind of showed that culture is changing a little bit, and it's like a little bit more acceptable for people to participate in dissent. And
exactly. And like for me, I didn't really care what made them get out there, you know? But there is like a movement that is happening only in the capital, which is also very sad for us as activists, because kind of the capital is fighting for the rights of the whole country, which is the most of the Moldova is villages. We have 3 big cities, that's all. The rest are people from the villages that are the most oppressed. And the lack of interest in getting out, speaking about rights, speaking about the problems, make us look ridiculous in the eyes of our, let's say, opposition, which is like the institutions that are not working properly, the political parties that are against any human rights sometimes, I feel so. And of course, when we are fighting for the one that are in the countryside, people from the city said, but where is nobody from the countryside here with you, saying that you're right or wrong, you know?
No. Another point of view about the countryside that Stella is saying is just like, because the power structures in small communities, you feel like these power structures really like on a greater scale than in the capital. So this is one of the points why it's not happening there. Another is that we need to understand that when we are doing something like participating, it's not necessarily we are against somebody, but we are for something. I mean, like, we need to have this, it would be good to have this proactive like way of thinking about participation in general, if it's activism or, I don't know, you are participating in the political life, let's say. So we need to enlarge this discussion, actually, and about your question that you have, what brings people together. What we feel is that people are getting together like in a much bigger number is when it's a problem or something happened that really moves you or impacts you like directly. Because sometimes let's say struggles that Stella was saying about, we are going there and people don't understand why we are in the streets, let's say. It's just we need to show this problem from another side, I think, just to show how this problem impacts your life too. Because people are not getting their like body from the sofa till they don't feel like this on their skin. So it's really good to have this point of view, like how it impacts us all, actually.
So what are some of the ways that in the feminist movement in Moldova you've been able to, help people see how this issue does affect you?
I think all the women in Moldova will remember the 2024 year because that was the year when we understood what works and what works for us. And we understood that this is ongoing, continuous actions, and that that, for example, we were doing every Wednesday in front of every responsible institution a protest. Because there was a girl that was like killed, raped, and she was pregnant and tortured, so she was left on the streets, and the police didn't do the bare minimum to kind of solve this case, and it took too long to find the criminals that did this. So we were going there to ask for the transparency and somebody to respond for these crimes. And the women really allied to this, but there wasn't only one person or one institution responsible for this crime. So we felt that we should like make accountable every institution. So every Wednesday was a day when women were coming, and men and women were coming with us to this protest to stay for a cause, that we want somebody to be responsible for the crimes. And there was a moment when we understood that people do need to see like, why are we doing this? How are we doing this? And when? And this is like the three main questions that everyone is asking, and we gave them what they wanted, and they came to support. That was one of the, let's say, movements that we had in 2024.
What were the institutions that you targeted apart from the police?
Ministry of Justice, for sure, because like what we are seeing that actually the perpetrators are punished, but the punishment is much more lower if it's a case where it's like murdered or abused a woman instead of a man. So what we want like functional like justice for everybody. So we went to the Ministry of Justice. We went to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, again, just because we need, again, to reiterate that police need to like act quickly and really transparent, and need to have like real good attitude in that sense, just to they are the first one that need to act, so it's really important. And we went to in general near the parliament, just to say that that is a problem, and we are here for that girl and for all the girls there. It was like more like a statement than and just to say that you need to be responsible to keep accountable all other institutions too. We were going to the when some other cases in that year came, we were going to the institutions in the small cities or villages where this
like
happened, like
courts,
yeah, and city hall, because in if you are speaking about like violence and women's rights, everybody is responsible. Everybody. I mean, starting from the social assistant till the teacher in the classroom of your children.
Also, to add to this, these protests were a small
part. Or let's say
there was a small part, a visible, a loud part of the bigger plan, because the bigger agenda of the feminist movement was to introduce the femicide term in the local, in the national law, because a lot of cases of gender-based violence and crimes on females started to get out when we became more louder and the press started to cover it. So that's also important to mention that we have as a movement a lot of press on our side, and they are emphasizing, mostly I'm proud, they're emphasizing more correctly than previous years.
We got better here.
Yeah, matters about the gender-based violence. And when you are in the press, when the cases in the regions start to pop up as popcorns, already there is a like feeling of uncomfortable for the government. Like, okay, they're getting to us somehow. They're getting to us, and that was our main goal. And like we started in March, and it was like 3 or 4 months of protests. When they in June, there was the first reading of the law of introduction to femicide, which was a big win for the organizations that done a lot of advocacy
previously of
many
this case
years,
and
yes.
Many years previously. So it's a work. Sorry, Stella. It's a work for many years, and it's important. But the other thing is like it's a pity that law or that like advocacy work was like had a small success just in a case of like really sad case when a woman was killed. So like,
But I see also a bright part of it, because when they came out with this law, the people that just first time got into the streets and they took this taste of power and ownership, that I
People
can change
power.
something, people power. And we won. Look, the femicide is there in our laws. Now I have this hope and feeling that they see what is the people power and how we can change things in our country. And next time we will go out on the streets, there'll be more of us, because we can, and we showed that this is possible.
and here I just want to add about what you said about the advocacy that some organizations. So the beauty of our movement of Moldova is that everybody can choose which kind of method or direction want to work on, because somebody was doing advocacy, somebody was like drafting like changes of laws and I don't know, some like documents, yeah. Somebody was really advocating and making lobbying with like government and politicians. Somebody was going out on the streets, somebody was speaking on social media. So you can choose a lot of, like, you have a lot of diversity of methods to choose, and you can just do whatever you feel more comfortable with, that I don't know, may move you and what you can do better, let's say. So this is the beauty, and because we have different skills in the movement, like the activists and all the professionals, and different like points of view, sometimes it's hard because not every time we are understanding each other, but when the goal and the values are the same, like Stella said, like we are going there doing everything we can in different ways, but we need to get there, and this is like the beauty of the things actually.
So, I mean, there was one case of a girl who was affected, and now more cases are coming up. I mean, I think this is
Yes.
a great example how if just a few people try to do that one first thing, you know, it kind of opens the gates, the floodgates for, you know, it's like the dam
Yes.
has broken and the water can now flow freely.
Yes.
So let's hope, you know, for the best in Moldova and elsewhere where there are similar issues like femicide happening. I just want to say thanks. Julia, earlier you said it'd be great to get more bodies off the sofa. We are going to get our bodies off of this sofa so that we can go to the lake now and chill with our other nomads from around the world. Thanks so much for joining me in this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us.
Hi! We hope you enjoyed the conversation on this episode of Troublemakers and feel inspired to stir up some good trouble in your own community. Do feel free to check out our other episodes and subscribe to Troublemakers Podcast in your preferred podcast app. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook as troublemakers.podcast for all the latest updates, behind-the-scenes content, and sneak peeks of what's coming next. We also love to hear from our listeners. You can email us via troublemakersthepodcast@gmail.com or simply drop a DM through our social media. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, take a moment and share it with a friend or leave us a review. It really helps us grow our community of troublemakers. Keep shaking things